The first reading is the story of Naaman the leper. It's in 2 Kings. You can find the reference in the bulletin. It is one of these terrific Bible stories that attracted me to the Bible at a young age. Most of you may not know this story. It's not a real common one. It starts, Naaman is a commander of an army of a different country. He's not an Israelite. And it's a bit of a long story, a bit of an interesting story, how he comes to be at Elisha's house with this leprosy, wanting to be healed. And Elisha, that first time, doesn't actually even come out to talk to him. He simply sends word to Naaman, go bathe in the Jordan 7 times. And Naaman isn't actually really impressed by this, but his servants get involved and he finally does it. And he does. He dips in the Jordan 7 times and is completely healed of his leprosy. That's where the part of the story you heard picks up. He's so grateful. And this is a huge deal to be cured of leprosy. And it certainly hadn't happened in his home country with the God that he worshiped there. And so he is now absolutely a believer. And he comes back to Elisha full of gratitude. And the first thing he says, take stuff, take money, take clothes, all these things that I brought to give you. I need to give thanks to God, to your God, and to you. Here, take this. But Elisha doesn't want any of that. And so then Naaman goes on and says 2 very unusual things. The first thing he says is, okay, if you don't want to take my gifts, my offerings, grant me this favor. Let me load up 2 mule loads full of dirt and take it with me. That is an indication of Naaman's theology. As was common in that day, not with the Israelites, of course. They believed that God was the God of everything. But most peoples of that day, they believed that gods were localized, so that the God that was of your city or your country only could operate in that area. And so Naaman assumes that he has gone into Israel and he has encountered Israel's God. But Israel's God's not going to do him any good when he gets home. And so he's got this crazy idea. He's going to load up this dirt and he's going to take it home, spread it out, make sort of a prayer area or something. Pardon me. And then he's going to kneel on that dirt, on Israel's dirt, and that will allow him to stay connected to this God. It'll allow him to give thanks to this God. You will appreciate, by the way, that that's horrible theology. Just wrong, all right? But then he goes on and he continues the part I had the lector read, a couple extra verses, because I wanted you to hear the other part of this conversation. He goes on to say to Elisha, hey, by the way, I need to ask your forgiveness up front. My job, I'm the commander of the army, I am required to go with the king into the temple of my God, of this Ramon, this God. And I will need to bow down to this God because that's just part of the gig. That's part of my job. But I'm not really going to be worshiping that God. I believe that your God's the only God. Well, that's a bit of a problem too, isn't it? Because that's a clear violation of the first commandment. He can't do that. He can't say, "Oh, I believe in God, in the Lord," but I'm still going to fake worshiping something else. And so, if you can get this scene in your head, Naaman is just so happy. He's been cleansed. He wants to give thanks. He's a new believer, if you will, and he utters this junk. And there is Elisha, the great prophet of God, and he looks at Naaman and he says, "Go in peace. Go." Now you would, I don't know, but that should surprise you perhaps. You would think that maybe Elisha would say, oh, Naaman, well, hey, hold on here. Maybe you should stay. Why don't you stay a week and let me teach you about this God you've encountered, because you're not thinking about this very well at all. But he doesn't do it. Go in peace. Go. Oh, Naaman, that's great. That's great. Go. You'll be fine. I just wanted to run through, if you will, just a little bit of the ramifications of that. Because you would, if you tried to take that story and move it into modern times, especially with social media and all the way that people debate stuff on social media, you'd appreciate that this would create a firestorm if some bishop or some big wig in the church let something like that go. You know, oh, wait. We are supposed to instruct the ignorant. We are supposed to help people so that they know what it is they're supposed to do. So as you think about it, I just think you want to keep one big thing in mind. We're all on a spiritual journey. Naaman, at the point of this story, is been a believer for a couple hours. Whatever time it took him to get from the River Jordan back to Elisha's house, I don't know where he was living, but it must not have been very far. So he's been a believer for just literally hours. And what is the expectation of someone like that? It is not the same thing you would expect from a believer who's been a believer for years and years and years and years. We're all on a spiritual journey. We all are at different places in our lives. And that is a really good thing to remember when you are dealing with other people. There is a tendency sometimes to think that, well, I've got this worked out. Why doesn't everybody else get it worked out? That was what happened a couple years ago when they did that survey about the Eucharist, that all sorts of people were struggling with the idea that Jesus is fully present in the sacrament. And all this hullabaloo. But was it not just a question that, sure, a bunch of people, they're on their journey, and they just hadn't yet gotten to the point where that was a belief they could wrap their head around. Wasn't that they didn't want to necessarily, they just weren't there yet. I've talked to lots of people who are in that place. It's not they don't believe, they're not willfully saying, oh, that's silly. They're just not quite there yet. And when it comes to morality, there are lots and lots of people that if you took them aside and you brought up something, they'd look at you and go like, are you serious? That's a sin? They're not there yet. And it's good for us to keep that in mind as we talk to people, because there are going to be times when we are going to need to admonish the sinner or instruct the ignorant. There are going to be times when we should do that. But pardon me, Elisha reminds us that there are also going to be times when you just need to look at him and be like, yeah, go in peace. It'll be fine. It'll be fine for now. The other part of this is just to remind ourselves that you and I, are on a spiritual journey and need to keep growing. Because there's sometimes a tendency for people to think, they'll say things like, oh yes, I have all my sacraments, as if they are a turkey and they're done. Like you're not. You know, like the idea is like, wonderful, you have your sacraments. We confirm kids in 6th grade here. We are thinking that that's it. Their spiritual journey is over. They know everything. Of course not. You and I need to continue to grow. You and I need to continue to wrestle with stuff. Things that we thought were perfectly fine before, perhaps now we realize, oh, whoa. Or maybe we thought it wasn't a big deal. Maybe something that we would have said, it's a venial sin, who cares? But now we're to the point like, whoa, this is serious. I can't be doing this. We need to be growing as well. And I very much encourage you to do that. Not only would that be good for your relationship with God, it'll be good for your life, all that stuff. But if you get to the point where you think, I've got it all worked out, I know all about it, I know everything about morals. I know everything about the faith. Oh yeah, ask me anything. Two things will happen, none of them good. The first is you will have limited God. You'll put God in a nice little box. God doesn't belong in a box. That's a bad thing to do. But worse even yet, you'll become a judge. Because since you know everything, since you have oh yes, I know right and wrong about everything, you will stand upon high and you will look at your friends and your neighbors and people in the news and say, oh no, that's not right. Oh, that's okay. That's not right. And you don't want to be there either. Jesus is pretty clear about that. So we need to have a little bit of humility and just admit that I am where I am right now. And hopefully a year from now, I will be farther along. I'll understand things better, and maybe I'll be at a point where I could have the wisdom of Elisha. And I'll get in a situation, and there will be a part of me that will say, oh, wait, I should fix this. But maybe instead we'll have the wisdom to look at them and say, in this moment, I just need to look at this person and say, hey, that's terrific. You're healed. The Lord has done this, a wonderful thing for you. Go in peace.